Benedict Whitmore woke before dawn on the fourth morning in a row to find his firewood already stacked, his chickens already fed, and his vegetable garden weeded with a precision he had never managed himself. The first morning, he had assumed exhaustion had made him forget doing the work himself. The second morning brought suspicion. The third morning delivered certainty that someone was tending his farm under cover of darkness, and this fourth morning found him crouched behind his barn in the pre-dawn cold, breath misting in the air, determined to catch his mysterious helper in the act. Benedict had inherited this frontier homestead from his uncle 6 months ago, leaving behind his life as a soldier in the king's army. The farm sat at the edge of the thornwood, where human settlements gave way to wilderness and the occasional orc clan territory. His neighbors, sparse as they were, had warned him about orcs. Dangerous, they said. Savage, they claimed. Keep your doors locked and your weapons close. But the war had left Benedict tired of violence, tired of suspicion, tired of hatred. He wanted only to work his land in peace, to coax life from the soil instead of taking it. The farm had been neglected during his uncle's final illness, and Benedict had thrown himself into repairs with the single-minded determination that had once made him a respected sergeant. Still, the work was endless, and he often fell into bed with tasks still undone, knowing dawn would bring even more, until 4 days ago when the mysterious help began. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten from black to deep purple when Benedict heard it. The soft scrape of wood on wood, the gentle cluck of chickens responding to a familiar presence. He pressed himself against the barn wall and peered around the corner toward the chicken coop. A figure moved in the dimness, tall and broad-shouldered, working with efficient grace. As the light grew, Benedict could make out more details. Green skin, powerful arms carrying the water bucket he had left empty by the well. She wore simple clothes, a worn tunic and trousers that had been mended many times, and her dark hair was pulled back in a practical braid. An orc woman. An orc woman was tending his farm. Benedict's hand went instinctively to his belt, where he no longer wore a sword. He had left that life behind. He watched as she set down the water bucket and moved to his vegetable garden, kneeling between the rows with a gentleness that seemed at odds with every story he had heard about her people. She pulled weeds with careful fingers, making sure not to disturb the young plants he had set out 3 weeks ago. The sun crept higher, and Benedict knew he should announce himself before full daylight arrived. If she was discovered here by one of his neighbors, there would be trouble. But he found himself transfixed, watching her work with such obvious care for his land, his livelihood, his small attempt at building something good. She moved to the woodpile next, and Benedict decided he had hidden long enough. He stepped out from behind the barn, his boots crunching on the frost-touched grass. The orc woman spun toward the sound with inhuman speed, her dark eyes wide. For a moment, they stared at each other across the yard, the space between them charged with mutual wariness. She was younger than he had first thought, perhaps close to his own 24 years, with small tusks that barely protruded past her lips and pointed ears that were currently pressed back against her skull in obvious fear. "Please," Benedict said, raising his empty hands. "I am not going to hurt you." She said nothing, muscles tensed for flight. "I just want to know why," Benedict continued, keeping his voice gentle as he would with a skittish horse. "Why are you helping me?" The orc woman's eyes darted toward the tree line, calculating her escape route. Benedict deliberately sat down on the ground, making himself less threatening. "My name is Benedict. Benedict Whitmore. This is my farm. Well, it was my uncle's, but now it is mine." "I know who you are," she said, and her voice was lower than a human woman's, with a slight growl underlying the words, but it was not unpleasant. Everyone knows the soldier who came back from the war. Former soldier, Benedict corrected. I am just a farmer now. A farmer who is very grateful for the help, even if I do not understand it. She studied him for a long moment, and Benedict could see the internal debate playing across her face. Finally, she spoke again. Your uncle was kind to me. Once 3 winters passed, I was caught in a storm. I took shelter in his barn. He found me in the morning. He did not call for hunters or try to kill me. He gave me food and let me warm myself by his fire. He asked only that I leave peacefully when the storm passed. Benedict felt a wave of affection for his uncle, whom he had barely known. That sounds like something he would do. When I heard he had died, I came to pay respects in my way. I saw how much work the farm needed. I saw how hard you labored alone. She lifted her chin slightly. My clan cast me out 2 years ago. I have no home, no purpose. This gave me purpose. Cast you out? Why? Her expression hardened. I refused to participate in a raid on a human village. Children lived there. I would not do it, so they named me traitor and exile. Benedict felt something shift in his chest. Here was someone else who had chosen peace over violence, who had paid a heavy price for that choice. What is your name? She hesitated, then answered. Senna. Senna Lodbrok. Senna. He let the name settle between them. Would you like to come inside? I was about to make breakfast. It is the least I can offer in return for all your help. Your neighbors will see. My nearest neighbor is 2 miles away, and old Marcus minds his own business. Benedict stood slowly, still moving with deliberate calm. Please, I would like to properly thank you. Senna looked at the house, then back at the trees, then finally at Benedict. Something in his face must have reassured her, because she gave a short nod. Benedict's kitchen was modest but clean, with herbs hanging from the rafters and his uncle's old copper pots arranged on shelves. He busied himself with the fire and the porridge pot, very aware of Senna standing uncertainly by the door, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. You can sit, he said, gesturing to the table. Truly, you are safe here. She moved to the chair but sat on the edge, not relaxing. Benedict focused on cooking, giving her space to acclimate. He added dried apples and honey to the porridge, wanting to make it special, wanting somehow to communicate his gratitude and his growing curiosity about this orc woman who tended his farm in secret. When he set bowls on the table and sat down across from her, Senna stared at the food as if it might be a trap. It is just porridge, Benedict said gently. I promise I am not trying to poison you. Why are you being kind to me? The question burst from her with raw honesty. Humans hate my kind. You fought in the wars. You have seen what orcs can do. Benedict set down his spoon. I have seen what all people can do when they are afraid and angry and taught to hate. I have seen humans commit atrocities that would shame the devils themselves. And now, I see an orc woman who was exiled for refusing to hurt children, who tends a stranger's farm in the dark simply because she wants to help. So perhaps everything I was taught about your people was as wrong as everything your people were probably taught about mine. Senna's eyes shimmered with sudden moisture and she blinked rapidly, turning her attention to the porridge. She ate slowly, as if savoring every bite, and Benedict realized with a pang that she might not have had a decent meal in some time. How have you been living? He asked. I hunt. I forage. There is a cave in the hills where I shelter. She did not meet his eyes. It is enough. It is survival, not living. Benedict made a decision that felt simultaneously reckless and absolutely right. Stay. Work the farm with me properly, not in secret. I can pay you in food and coin once the harvest comes in. There is a loft in the barn where you could make a proper sleeping space. Senna's head snapped up. You cannot mean that. I do mean it. I need help. You need a home. It seems practical. He smiled slightly. Besides, you are a better gardener than I am. Those weeds have been mocking me for weeks. If anyone finds out you are sheltering an orc, then we will deal with it together." Benedict held her gaze. "I am tired of living in fear, Senna. I am tired of hatred. Let me do this one good thing." She studied his face for a long moment, and Benedict had the sense of being weighed and measured. Finally, she nodded once. "I will stay. But if I bring danger to your door, I will leave immediately." "Agreed." Benedict extended his hand across the table. Senna looked at it, then clasped his forearm in the warrior's grip. Her skin was warm, her grasp strong but careful. Something sparked between them at the contact, a recognition of kindred spirits, of shared loneliness finding unexpected companion. The days that followed fell into a rhythm that felt startlingly right. Senna proved to be not just capable but extraordinary in her farm work. She was stronger than Benedict, able to lift things that would have required him to use pulleys and levers. But she was also patient and thoughtful, taking time to learn the particular needs of each plant, the personality of each animal. Benedict found himself watching her more than was strictly necessary. The way she hummed softly while milking the goats, a wordless orc melody that seemed to soothe the animals. The way she tilted her face up to the sun during their midday break, eyes closed, a small smile playing at her lips. The way she laughed, a rough sound like stones tumbling in a stream when one of the chickens stole bread right from Benedict's hand. They talked while they worked, at first about simple things like weather and crops, but gradually deepening into real conversation. Senna told him about her childhood in the clan, about her mother who had taught her the names of every plant in the forest, about her brother who had died in a human raid when she was 12. Benedict shared his own stories. His father, a blacksmith, who had wanted him to learn the trade. His decision to join the army at 17, seeking adventure and glory. The reality of war, which had cured him of such romantic notions within his first month. The friends he had lost. The things he had done that still woke him in the night. "You carry guilt," Senna observed one afternoon as they repaired a section of fence together. "I can see it in your eyes sometimes." Benedict hammered a nail with more force than necessary. "I was a good soldier. I followed orders. I killed when I was told to kill. And some of those I killed were probably like you, just people trying to survive, caught on the wrong side of a war they did not start." Senna placed her hand over his, stilling the hammer. "You cannot undo the past. You can only choose better in the present. Is that why you are here?" "Choosing better?" "Yes." She smiled, and it transformed her face, making her beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with human standards of beauty and everything to do with genuine warmth. "I am choosing this. This farm, this work, this peace." Benedict realized his hand had turned under hers, their fingers intertwining. They stayed that way for a heartbeat, 2, 3, before Senna gently pulled away and returned to the fence. But something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of a growing connection neither was quite ready to name. 2 weeks after Senna moved into the barn loft, old Marcus came by with a basket of early apples from his orchard. Benedict saw him approaching from the far field and felt his heart seize with panic. Senna was at the vegetable garden, clearly visible from the road. "Senna," he called out, trying to keep his voice calm, "we have a visitor." She looked up, saw Marcus, and immediately started for the barn. But the old farmer had already spotted her. "Benedict Whitmore," Marcus called out, his weathered face creased with concern. "Is that an orc on your property?" Benedict walked to meet Marcus at the gate, positioning himself between the old man and Senna, who had stopped halfway to the barn. "Her name is Senna. She is my hired hand." Marcus's bushy eyebrows rose nearly to his hairline. "You hired an orc." I hired someone who needed work and who is excellent at farm labor. Her species is irrelevant to me. It will not be irrelevant to others." Marcus lowered his voice. "Boy, I admire your uncle's kind heart, and I have always respected the fact you walked away from the army, but this is dangerous. If the wrong people find out, if someone from town comes out here and sees her, there will be trouble. Then I will deal with that trouble when it comes." Benedict kept his voice level but firm. "Marcus, she is not hurting anyone. She is helping me build something good here. Is that not what we are supposed to do? Build instead of destroy?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, looking past Benedict to where Senna stood, frozen and clearly prepared to run. "That orc girl, she looks scared half to death. She has every reason to be scared. Her own people exiled her. Humans have been taught to hate her on sight. Where exactly is she supposed to go to find peace?" The old farmer sighed heavily. "Your uncle would have done the same thing. Stubborn kindness runs in your family." He raised his voice slightly. "Orc girl, Senna, was it?" Senna nodded warily. "You hurt this boy or take advantage of his good nature, and you will answer to me. But if you are genuinely here to work and live in peace, then I will keep your secret." Marcus turned back to Benedict. "But be careful, son. There are people in town who would not be as understanding as an old farmer who has seen too much of life to care about ancient feuds." After Marcus left, Senna approached Benedict slowly. He could still tell others. "He will not. Marcus served in the wars too, a generation before me." "He understands." Benedict managed a smile. "Besides, he gave us his apples. That is a good sign." Senna looked at the basket Marcus had left. "Why do you keep defending me? You barely know me." "I know enough." Benedict met her eyes. "I know you are kind and hardworking and honest. I know you make the goats happy with your humming. I know you remember exactly how I like my tea in the morning. I know when you smile at the sunset, it is the most genuine expression of joy I have ever seen." "What else do I need to know?" Senna's breath caught. They stood in the yard, the afternoon sun warm on their shoulders, and Benedict saw in her eyes that she felt it too, this thing growing between them that was becoming impossible to ignore. "Benedict," she said softly, and the way she said his name made his heart race. "This cannot work. You know this cannot work. I know it will be difficult. I know people will not understand. But Senna, I have not felt this alive since before the war. Every morning I wake up glad for the day because I know I will see you. Tell me you do not feel something too." She looked away, her jaw tight. "What I feel does not matter. I will bring you nothing but trouble. You have brought me joy." Benedict stepped closer, not touching but near enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. "You have brought me purpose and partnership and the first real friendship I have had in years. If that comes with trouble, then I choose the trouble gladly." "You are a fool," Senna whispered, but there was no heat in it. "Perhaps, but I am a fool who is half in love with you, and I think you might feel the same." For a moment he thought she would deny it, would retreat behind walls of practicality and fear. But then she reached out and took his hand, holding it carefully as if it were something precious and fragile. "I do feel the same," she admitted. "I have tried not to. I have told myself every day that I should leave, that staying will only end in heartbreak, but I cannot seem to make myself go." Benedict lifted her hand and pressed it to his heart. "Then stay. Stay and let us see what we can build together." Senna's eyes filled with tears. "You are the first person since my exile who has looked at me and seen a person instead of a monster. I do not want to lose that. I do not want to lose you. You will not lose me." Benedict used his free hand to gently cup her face, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped. "I am not going anywhere." She leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed. They stood that way as the sun arced across the sky, holding each other with a tenderness that felt like a rebellion against every force that said they should be enemies. That night, Senna did not return to the barn loft. They sat by the fire in Benedict's kitchen, talking long into the darkness, sharing pieces of themselves they had never shared with anyone else. She told him about the orc belief in soul bonds, connections so deep they transcended physical form. He told her about his dream of making the farm into a sanctuary, a place where anyone could come and find peace regardless of their past. "We could do that together," Senna said, her hand resting in his. "We could make this a place that proves peace is possible." "We could," Benedict agreed. "If you are willing to take that risk with me." "I think I have been risking everything since the moment I decided to tend your farm in secret." Senna smiled. "At least now I am risking it for something real." They kissed then, soft and tentative at first, learning each other's shape and taste. Senna's tusks were smooth against Benedict's lips, not frightening but unique, part of what made her herself. They broke apart breathless, foreheads resting together, and Benedict felt a certainty settle into his bones that this was right, that this was meant to be. Summer deepened into early autumn, and the farm flourished under their combined care. The vegetable garden produced abundantly. The chickens laid more eggs than Benedict had ever seen, and the goats grew fat and content. Senna moved from the barn into the house, into Benedict's room, into his life in every way that mattered. They were careful when going to town for supplies, with Senna staying hidden in the wagon. But on the farm, they were free to be themselves, to work side by side in the sun, to steal kisses between chores, to fall asleep wrapped in each other's arms. Old Marcus visited occasionally, bringing news and supplies and gruff approval of the farm's progress. He never commented on the obvious change in Benedict and Senna's relationship, but Benedict caught him smiling knowingly more than once. It could not last forever, that golden time of peace. Benedict knew it, and Senna knew it, but they held on to it fiercely while they could. The trouble came on a bright October morning when Benedict was in the far field harvesting pumpkins. He heard the horses before he saw them, multiple riders approaching at speed. His heart sank as he recognized several men from town, including Roger Danvers, who had served as a captain in the army and who had never quite left the war behind. Benedict ran toward the house, panic clawing at his throat. Senna was there, hanging laundry, and she froze when she saw the riders. "Into the house," Benedict shouted, but it was too late. The riders had seen her. Roger and his 4 companions reined in their horses at the edge of the yard, hands on weapons. "Well, well," Roger said, his voice cold. "The rumors were true. Benedict Whitmore is harboring an orc." Benedict positioned himself between the riders and Senna. "She is not being harbored. She works here. This is my land, and I will employ who I choose." "That thing is not an employee. It is a monster." Roger dismounted, and the others followed suit. "We heard talk of an orc in the area. We have been hunting it for weeks. Imagine our surprise to find it here, playing house with a soldier who should know better. Senna is not in it. She is a person, and she has done nothing wrong." Benedict's hand moved to his belt, but he still carried no weapon. "I am asking you to leave. Now." "We will leave," Roger said, "and we will take the orc with us. There is a bounty for orc heads in 3 counties. Senna stepped forward, and Benedict felt her presence solid at his back. "I will go with them," she said quietly. "I will not let them hurt you. No." Benedict's voice rang with absolute conviction. "You are not going anywhere. Benedict, there are 5 of them. You cannot fight them all." "I do not intend to fight." Benedict raised his voice to address Roger and the others. "You want to take Senna, you will have to go through me. And that means killing a human, a former sergeant of the king's army, in cold blood on his own land. Are you prepared to do that? Are you prepared to explain that to the magistrate, Roger's face darkened. "You would defend an orc over your own kind." "I am defending someone I love from people who want to murder her for the crime of existing." Benedict held Roger's gaze without flinching. "Yes, I love her. This orc woman who you call a monster is the best person I have ever known. She is kind and brave and good, and if you want to harm her, you will have to kill me first." The silence that followed was thick with tension. Benedict could hear his own heartbeat, could feel Senna trembling behind him, could see Roger's hand tighten on his sword hilt. Then a new voice cut through the moment. "That will not be necessary." Old Marcus emerged from the road on his mule, and behind him came a surprising crowd. Other farmers from the area, some Benedict barely knew. Even Father Thomas from the village church, his clerical robes dusty from travel. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" Roger demanded. "Could ask you the same question, Roger Danvers." Marcus dismounted with the stiffness of age. "But I know the answer. You are here to commit murder because you cannot let go of your hate. That orc is named Senna," Father Thomas interrupted, his gentle voice somehow carrying complete authority. "And I have been hearing interesting stories about her. How she helped repair the bridge on Miller's Creek without being asked. How she left firewood at the widow Hanson's cabin. How she returned a lost child to his parents when she could have simply walked away." The priest looked at Roger steadily. "Tell me, which of those actions marks her as a monster?" "She is an orc," Roger repeated, but his certainty was wavering. "She is a person," Benedict said. "A person who chose peace over violence, who was cast out by her own people for refusing to hurt humans, who has worked hard to build something good here. If you cannot see that, then you are the one choosing to be blind." One of Roger's companions shifted uncomfortably. "I did not sign up to kill a human, Roger, especially not over an orc who has not actually done anything wrong." "She exists," Roger spat. "That is wrong enough." "No," Marcus said firmly. "That is where you are mistaken. I fought in the old wars, boy. I killed orcs. I saw orcs kill humans. I know the hatred on both sides, but I also know that hatred is a choice, and so is peace. These two young people are choosing peace. They are choosing to see each other as individuals, not enemies, and I will not stand by while you punish them for that." Father Thomas moved to stand beside Benedict and Senna. "Nor will I. This young woman has shown more Christian charity than many who sit in my pews each Sunday. If Benedict vouches for her character, and Marcus confirms she has done no harm, then I see no reason to treat her as a criminal." The other farmers murmured agreement, forming a loose circle around Benedict and Senna. Roger looked around at the gathering, his face red with fury and frustration, but outnumbered and lacking clear justification for violence. "This is not over," he finally said, mounting his horse with jerky movements. "The day will come when you regret this choice, Whitmore." "I doubt that very much," Benedict replied. Roger and his companions rode off, and Benedict felt his knees go weak with relief. Senna's arms came around him from behind, holding him up, and he covered her hands with his own. "Thank you," he said to the assembled crowd. "All of you, thank you." Marcus waved away the gratitude. "We look after our own out here on the frontier. And whether Roger Danvers likes it or not, you and Senna are part of this community now." Father Thomas smiled. "Though I might suggest, for the sake of propriety, that you two consider making your relationship official in the eyes of the law and the church. It would make it considerably harder for anyone to challenge Senna's right to be here." Benedict turned to look at Senna, whose eyes were wide with surprise. "I had planned to ask properly, with a ring and pretty words. But if you are willing, Senna Lodbrok, I would be honored if you would marry me." Senna's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, yes, of course yes." The gathered neighbors erupted in cheers and laughter, and Benedict pulled Senna into a kiss that felt like a promise, like a new beginning, like the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. The wedding took place 3 weeks later in Benedict's farmyard, with Father Thomas officiating and what seemed like half the frontier in attendance. Senna wore a simple dress that one of the neighbor women had helped her make, with wildflowers woven into her dark hair. Benedict wore his best shirt and could not stop smiling. They spoke their vows as the autumn sun warmed the land, promising to love and honor each other, to work side by side, to build their life together. When Father Thomas pronounced them husband and wife, the cheer that went up startled birds from the trees. Old Marcus had brought his fiddle, and there was music and dancing and more food than Benedict had ever seen in one place. Neighbors who had been strangers became friends, united in celebration of something rare and precious. Love that transcended old hatreds, hope that defied cynicism, peace chosen consciously every day. As the sun set and their neighbors began to depart, Benedict and Senna stood together watching the gold and crimson sky. Senna leaned her head on Benedict's shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her waist, marveling at how natural it felt, how right. "Did you ever imagine this?" Senna asked softly. "When you inherited this farm, did you imagine you would end up married to an orc?" "I did not imagine I would end up this happy," Benedict replied honestly. "I thought I would spend my life alone, trying to make up for my past. But then a mysterious helper started doing my chores in the dark, and everything changed." Senna laughed, that rough, beautiful sound he loved. "I was not very subtle, was I? Not particularly, but I am glad you were not." Benedict turned her to face him, taking both her hands in his. "You have given me something I thought I had lost forever. You have given me hope, Senna. Hope for the future, hope that change is possible, hope that love can bridge any divide. You have given me the same." Senna's eyes shimmered with emotion. "You have given me a home, Benedict. Not just this farm, but a place where I belong, where I am wanted, where I do not have to hide who I am. You have given me yourself, and that is the greatest gift I could ever receive." They kissed as the stars began to emerge, surrounded by the farm they had built together, standing on land that now represented something larger than either of them alone. A symbol of what was possible when people chose courage over fear, love over hate, hope over despair. In the months that followed, their farm became known as a place of refuge. An orc youth fleeing persecution found shelter in their barn and stayed to learn farming. A human family displaced by floods was given space to rebuild. Slowly, carefully, Benedict and Senna created the sanctuary they had dreamed of, a place where species did not matter, where only character and kindness counted. There were still difficult moments. Roger Danvers spread rumors and caused trouble when he could. Some people in town refused to trade with an orc lover. But for every person who turned away, 2 more stepped forward in support. The frontier was a hard place, and practical people understood the value of hard work and good character regardless of who possessed it. Winter came, and Benedict and Senna sat by their fire in the evenings, planning for spring planting, dreaming of the future. Senna's belly had begun to swell with their first child, a development that filled them both with joy and terror in equal measure. A half-orc child would face challenges neither could fully predict, but they would face those challenges together, as they faced everything. "Do you think our child will look more orc or more human?" Senna wondered one snowy evening, her hand resting on her stomach. "I think our child will look like ours," Benedict said, moving to kneel beside her chair and placing his own hand over hers. "And we will love them absolutely, no matter what." "I know we will." Senna stroked his hair with her free hand. "I just want them to have an easier path than we did." "We are building that path," Benedict reminded her. Every day, every person we help, every mind we change, we are creating a world where our child can be accepted for who they are. It will not happen overnight, but it is happening. Senna leaned down to kiss the top of his head. How did I get so lucky to find you? You did my chores in the dark, Benedict teased. Very efficient courtship method. It worked, did it not? It worked. Benedict rose to sit beside her, pulling her against his side. It brought me exactly what I needed, even though I did not know I needed it. It brought me you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance in the hearth, listening to the wind whistle around the eaves. Outside, snow blanketed the farm in white, covering the fields they would plant again in spring, the garden they would tend together, the land that had brought them together and given them purpose. Benedict thought about that morning months ago when he had hidden behind his barn, waiting to catch his mysterious helper. He had expected perhaps a neighbor child or a vagrant seeking food. He had never imagined he would discover the love of his life, his partner, his home given human form. Or rather, orc form. But as Senna said once during a late-night conversation, love did not see species or skin color or tusks. Love saw souls, and souls were universal. Their child was born in the sweet days of early summer, a daughter with her mother's green skin and her father's blue eyes, with small tusks and pointed ears, and a lusty cry that announced her presence to the world. They named her Brenna, and she was perfect. The neighbors came to visit, bringing gifts and congratulations. Even Father Thomas stopped by to bless the child, declaring her a precious soul in God's eyes. Old Marcus carved her a wooden rattle and declared himself honorary grandfather. Roger Danvers stayed away, but his absence was a relief rather than a disappointment. Some people would never change, and Benedict had learned to accept that. What mattered was that enough people had changed, had opened their hearts and minds enough to see that love and family transcended old prejudices. As Benedict held his daughter for the first time while Senna recovered from the birth, he felt overwhelmed by gratitude for the strange path his life had taken. From soldier to farmer, from lonely to loved, from living in the past to building a future. All because an exiled orc woman had decided to tend his farm in secret, and he had decided to find out why. "Thank you," he whispered to Senna, who smiled tiredly from the bed. "Thank you for doing my chores in the dark. Thank you for being brave enough to stay when I asked. Thank you for choosing me, for loving me, for giving me this incredible gift." "Thank you for seeing me," Senna replied softly, "for looking at an orc and seeing a person worth knowing. Thank you for defending me, for marrying me, for building this beautiful life with me. Thank you for our daughter." Benedict carried baby Brenna to the bed so Senna could hold her, and they marveled together at the tiny miracle they had created. A symbol of hope, a bridge between worlds, a promise that the future could be different from the past. Outside, the farm bustled with life. The orc youth they had taken in, whose name was Grok, was feeding the chickens and talking to them in his native language. The human family they had helped was working their own plot now, but stopped by often to share meals and stories. The land thrived under loving care, producing abundantly enough to feed their growing community. This was what peace looked like, Benedict realized. Not an absence of conflict, but the presence of love strong enough to overcome it. Not pretending differences did not exist, but celebrating them as part of a larger whole. Not forgetting the past, but refusing to let it define the future. Each dawn, his chores were no longer mysteriously completed before he woke, because Senna was beside him and they did the work together. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, Benedict remembered that first morning when he had hidden and watched an orc woman tend his farm with such gentle care. He remembered the fear in her eyes when he revealed himself, and the courage it must have taken for her to stay despite that fear. She had given him everything by taking that risk, and he had given her everything by accepting her gift. Together, they had built something that would outlast them both, something that would ripple forward through their daughter and all the lives they touched. As summer deepened, and baby Brenna grew from helpless newborn to alert infant with her mother's smile and her father's laugh, Benedict and Senna sat on their porch in the evenings, watching the sun set over their land, holding hands at peace. This was their happily ever after, hard-won and precious. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and true and theirs. And it had all begun with the simple act of an orc woman tending a farm in secret, and a human man brave enough to ask why.